Rick Schaefer here with Schaefer Outdoors, bringing you some late season goose hunting tips and tactics. Step is to scout. Come on, is I like to scout and locate my birds. And what I mean by that is find out where they are going, and when you find out where they are going, keep a log of the date you've seen them, the weather, what the weather was like, what they were doing, were they feeding, were they laying down, what kind of spread were they in. Just be very detailed when it comes to logging that, and be very specific on every aspect of what they were doing. Maintenance. You got to maintain your decoys and maintain your hunting equipment. And what I mean by that is make sure your decoys have a fresh coat of paint, make sure they're not dirty, make sure they're looking as realistic as possible. Another thing is that a lot of hunters don't think about this, but make sure your gun is clean. I may not detail my gun and clean it every single time, take it apart and just go through a very detailed clean of it, but after every time I hunt, I do like to wipe it down, keep my my actions nice and clean, my trigger smooth. I don't want my gun jamming. I've come this far, I don't want my equipment to fail on me. Cover. Make sure you have plenty of cover. If I'm in a field and I'm in a layout blind, I'm going to use the stalks that are from that field to cover my layout blind. I don't want to use other stalks from other fields to cover that because they won't blend right. When hunting water in the late season, it's important to ditch the boat. I like to drive my boat up to my spot, use my lights to set my decoys up, and do what I have to do, get everything out of the boat. Take a saw with me to build a blind, or just to maybe cut some extra branches to add some extra cover. You'd rather have too much than not enough. And once I get done doing that, then I will take my boat and I will put it 200, 300 yards away and cover it up, maybe pick my blind up on my boat. I may not tuck it in, but I don't want the birds to see it, and if they do see it, I don't want them to recognize what it is. I don't want it to deter them from coming in. So get there early, ditch the boat, build a blind, use the natural cover. Tips to make your decoy spread more lifelike. Scuff the corn up that's right in front of the decoys. Make it look like there's an active feed going on. Or if I'm at water, I cut the mojos out and I maybe use a jerk string. Adding motion to it can really help when it comes to late season. Actual decoy spreads. Don't be basic. Use, they have seen every J, every V, every U. They've seen the basic spreads time and time again. So be unique. And this is when your logs come into play. See what the weather is going to be like on the day that you're wanting to hunt, and try and match what those birds were doing in your logs on that day or on the days that were like that. That will give you a good idea of what they're going to do. There's no guarantee that they're going to do the same thing, but it gives you a start. Decoys in front of you should always be your best looking decoys. You're going to want them to land as close as possible. So they're going to look at those birds that are right in front of your blind or mixed in with your blind as a stopping point. When these birds land, that is the only time they are in a specific pattern. After that, they start to disperse and they start to just move to their loafing stages. They get comfortable, they get safe, they get situated. So there's no shape to them once they're comfortable and they have landed there and have been there. Calling tips. I like to always use flags, no mojos at this point. The less calling, the better, really. Read your birds, and what I mean by reading your birds, if your birds are being vocal, be vocal. If they're coming in and they're not, where you want them to be, I want you to pick up the calling, get them where you want them to be. But if they're coming in and they're right where you want them to be, I just keep them entertained. Nothing too high pitched. Just entertain the idea of real geese in a field feeding. If they like you calling, then call. Just understand what they were doing and see what they want. Every day is different. Every flock is different. So read your birds. It is very important to read your birds.